Hi, my name's Clara, and this story isn't about bitterness. It's about closure, about standing on the ashes of your pain, your past, and building something no one thought you could. Something so real, so massive that the people who once looked down on you suddenly can't even look you in the eye. It starts 10 years ago. I was standing at the edge of a gravel road, a cheap suitcase in one hand, and a paper bag with my sketchbooks and laptop in the other. No one came to say goodbye. Not my mom, not my stepdad, not even my siblings. That moment, standing alone while the cold wind cut through my thin hoodie, was when I realized I was completely on my own. And maybe that wasn't such a bad thing. Let me explain. Growing up, I was the quiet one. The strange girl in a house full of loud opinions, football games, and perfectly filtered Instagram lives. My stepdad, Ron, always made it clear I wasn't really his, even though he married my mom when I was 6. And my mom, well, she went from being my safe place to someone who avoided eye contact when Ron called me useless, weird, or just like my father. That last one, that was the worst insult she could think of. My biological dad left when I was 3. No goodbye, no explanation, just gone. And for the rest of my childhood, that wound got poked every time Ron reminded me I didn't belong. I wasn't athletic like my stepbrother Josh. I wasn't bubbly like my half-sister Melissa. I didn't dress the way they wanted, talk the way they talked, or share their excitement about backyard barbecues and Sunday service. Instead, I read books, drew, coded little games on my beat-up laptop when the Wi-Fi wasn't hogged. To them, I was a ghost in the house, a mistake, a burdened up by the time I turned 18. I'd already learned to make myself invisible. And when I finally got the courage to say I was leaving, not for college, because they couldn't afford to help, but for a freelance design job I found online, Ron laughed in my face. Sure, go ahead, he said, sipping beer like it was holy water. See how long you last in the real world, Clara the daydreamer? My mom said nothing. Not even goodbye. Fast forward to the present, 10 years later. I'm standing behind the tinted glass of a penthouse window, sipping a double espresso, watching the city wake up beneath me. The skyline cuts through the morning mist like it was painted just for me. My fingers scroll through my emails as I finalize designs for a luxury real estate app. The same one I built from scratch. The same one that got bought out last year. For an 8-figure sum, life changed. Slowly, then all at once, I went from renting a shoebox in a sketchy neighborhood to coding for survival, to running a full-stack design firm with 28 employees. And now, I own 5 properties, consult for billion-dollar tech firms, and sit on 2 startup boards. I'm not saying all that to brag. I'm saying it because none of them ever believed I'd amount to anything until the invitation came. A family reunion, not addressed to me, of course not, but forwarded through an old mutual friend who still followed my work. She sent a photo of the Facebook event, complete with Ron's big dumb smile plastered at the top and the words, celebrating family, forgiveness, and forever love. Forgiveness? That hit me like a punch to the chest. Been gone 10 years. Without so much as a call, no birthday wishes, no "are you okay?" during the pandemic. No apology, nothing. And now, suddenly, they were gathering under some banner of love without even acknowledging the one person they shoved out the door. I didn't cry. I just stared at the screen, fingers trembling over the touchpad, and then I smiled, because in that moment, I knew exactly what I was going to do. You see, the reunion was scheduled at a place called Willow Creek Estates, an upscale gated retreat outside the city, famous for hosting weddings, conferences, and yes, family events. I knew it well, because I owned it, or more specifically, the company that managed the estate belonged to one of my holding companies. They didn't know that. Not yet, but they would. I didn't show up right away. No, that wouldn't have been satisfying. I let them settle in first, gave them time to get cozy, to start their speeches and backyard games, clinking glasses under the string lights while pretending nothing bad ever happened. Then, on the final day, when everyone was relaxed and marinated in nostalgia, I arrived. The reaction? Let me paint it for you. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue over the white cobblestone paths and trimmed hedges. I pulled up in a matte black SUV, stepped out in tailored white linen and gold-rimmed sunglasses, and walked straight past. The valet with a nod. No one recognized me at first. But as I stepped onto the main lawn where everyone was gathered, plates of catered food in their hands, plastic champagne flutes in their fingers, it happened. One by one, faces froze. Forks hung midair. Conversations died like someone had cut the power, and then Ron spoke. You've got to be kidding. My mom turned. Her eyes widened. Melissa actually dropped her phone. Josh's wife whispered something into his ear and took a step back, like she could smell the drama coming. I took my time. Walked up to the center where a group photo was being arranged. Stopped just beside the arch of flowers and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Hey, hope I'm not late." The silence was unreal. You could hear the wind rustling the fabric of the tablecloths. Someone cleared their throat. My mom stepped forward, face pale. "Clara, what are you? How did you—" "You didn't invite me," I said, voice calm. "But since you're hosting this on my property, I figured I'd stop by." Dead silence. Ron looked like he'd been slapped. "What are you talking about?" I smiled. "Willow Creek, I own the parent company, which means technically you're all on my turf." The color drained from his face. Someone, I think Josh, actually choked on his drink. And let me tell you, that 10 seconds of stunned silence, worth every ounce of pain they put me through. But I wasn't done. Turned to the event manager, a young woman named Hazel who worked under me. She was in on it. She nodded and stepped up beside me with a clipboard. "I hope everything's been to your satisfaction," she said sweetly. "Miss Holly has arranged full coverage of the event. On the house, of course." The confusion on their faces was priceless. "Miss Holly," Ron echoed, squinting. I pulled off my sunglasses. "That's my company name. Clara Hale Media. You remember the girl who wouldn't last a week in the real world?" No one spoke. I leaned in a little closer. "I didn't come here for drama. Just wanted to see the family I wasn't good enough for. Seems like you're all doing just fine without me." My mom tried to reach for my hand, but I stepped back. "You chose him," I said quietly, over and over. "And now I've chosen myself." I turned without waiting for a response. Walked back to my car. Left them standing there, mouths open, hearts thudding with guilt they tried to bury under years of fake smiles and group photos. That should have been the end, but it wasn't, because later that night I got a call from my mom, and what she said next changed everything. I didn't answer the call, not immediately. I just stared at the screen as it buzzed quietly in my palm. The name Mom glowing against the dark interior of the car. My driver glanced in the rearview mirror, probably sensing the shift in energy, but I said nothing. Just watched the phone ring and stop, then ring again, and again. I finally answered on the 4th call, but I didn't speak. I let the silence stretch, cold and deliberate, because I wanted her to feel what I had felt for 10 years. "Clara." Her voice cracked on the other end. "Baby, please, don't hang up." Baby. That word. But why my jaw clenched so hard it hurt. "Why are you calling me now?" I asked, voice like ice. I didn't know you'd be there. If I had, I would have. Her voice was trembling. "You would have what?" I cut in. Made it a family reunion minus the Family shame? She sniffled. I just wanted to talk to you. I didn't know how to reach out after so long. You had 10 years, I said, leaning forward in my seat. 10 birthdays, 10 Christmases, 10 Thanksgivings, 10 chances. And you used every single one of them to say nothing. There was a pause, then a muffled sob. I was scared, Clara. No, I whispered. You were weak. There's a difference. I ended the call, but it wasn't over, because 2 days later, I got a visit dotted. It was early morning, and I was on the rooftop garden of my building, headphones in, coffee in hand, reviewing investor pitches on my tablet, when my assistant called. There's someone downstairs asking for you, she said. Client? No, it's a woman, middle-aged. Said she's your mother. I felt my heart stutter dot every rational bone in my body scream, don't let her up. But part of me, that lonely, injured child inside, needed closure. Send her to the glass lounge, I said after a pause. Give her water, nothing else. The glass lounge was exactly what it sounded like. Floor-to-ceiling windows, no privacy. No place to hide. I watched her from behind the mirrored glass, hidden from view. She looked older than I remembered. Tired, dressed in department store clothes. Eyes red from crying, hands clenched in her lap like she didn't know what to do with them. She looked small, but I didn't feel sorry for her. When I stepped into the room, her head shot up like she'd been electrocuted. Clara, she gasped. Oh, thank God. I didn't sit. I didn't smile. I just stood across from her, arms crossed, every inch of my posture screaming control. She stood too, eyes searching my face like she was trying to find something she'd lost. You look beautiful. I stayed silent. I saw your name online. I followed your company for years. I didn't realize it was you. You didn't want to realize, I said coolly. Makes it easier to sleep? She opened her mouth, closed it again, then finally whispered, I'm sorry. It landed flat. You're sorry now that I'm successful? I asked. Now that I own the land your little barbecue was held on? Now that the useless daydreamer became someone worth Googling? Tears pulled in her eyes. No, I'm sorry for everything. For letting Ron, for standing by, for not protecting you. The name Ron made my skin crawl. You let that man humiliate me every day for 12 years, I said, voice rising. He called me trash, worthless. He once poured water on my laptop because I spent too much time coding. Remember that? He ruined the only thing I cared about. I was scared of him, she said. I was trying to keep the peace. You kept his peace, I snapped. Not mine. She reached for me instinctively, but I took a step back, eyes hard, and then she said something that made my stomach twist. He's dying. I blinked. What? She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. Liver failure. Advanced. The reunion. It was more for him than anyone else. He wanted to see everyone one last time. I felt nothing, not sympathy. Not guilt, just a strange, cold detachment. Let me guess, I said. He wants to make amends? She nodded. He wants to apologize to you. He's been asking for you since you left. I laughed, short, bitter. He asked for me the same way he used to ask if I was mentally slow. The same way he used to tell people I'd be working at a gas station if I was lucky. He's changed, she said weakly. No, he's dying, I corrected. There's a difference. Silence fell between us like a wall. Then I said something that surprised even me. Fine, I'll come, but not for him, for me. Her eyes widened, hopeful. You will? I'll meet him? One time. 1 hour. No fanfare. And after that? I disappear again. She nodded quickly. Anything. Whatever you need. I turned to leave, but paused at the door. Oh, and Mom? She looked up. Don't ever call me baby again. The meeting was set for 2 days later. I chose the place, a private hospital suite, one of the nicest in the state, not because he deserved it, but because I wanted him fully aware. No excuses, no sedatives, no mercy. When I walked in, Rom looked like a shadow of the man I remembered, gaunt, pale, tubes in his arms. But the moment our eyes met, I saw a dot recognition dot and fear. He tried to smile. Clara, I sat down, crossed one leg over the other, let the silence hang. I heard you wanted to apologize. He nodded slowly. I did, I do. Well, I said, I'm here. He swallowed, eyes darting to my mother, who sat in the corner like a ghost. I was hard on you, he said. No, I interrupted. You were cruel. There's a difference. He winced. I didn't understand you. You were always different, quiet, sensitive, smart, I added, driven. Not yours. That hit him. He looked away. I was jealous, he finally said. You reminded me of everything I wasn't, and I punished you for it. That I didn't expect. Still, it wasn't enough. I needed a father, I said. Not a bully with a beer gut and a superiority complex. He didn't deny it. He just nodded. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm sorry for every word, every look, every time I made you feel less. I stared at him for a long moment, Dot, and then, very slowly, I stood. Apology accepted, I said. His eyes lit up. But forgiveness? I added, voice sharpening. That's not yours to ask for. You don't get to demand peace after a lifetime of war. He opened his mouth, but I was already walking out. Dot, my mom, ran after me in the hallway. Clara, wait. I turned Dot, and for the first time in my life, she flinched. Do you know what it's like? I said, voice shaking, to wonder if you were ever truly loved. To sit alone on your birthday with a muffin instead of cake because no one remembered. To leave home thinking maybe someone would stop you, and no one did. She was crying again. I stayed away because I had to. I continued. But I succeeded because you all made me feel like nothing. I turned that nothing into something. And now, I own half the city and not 1 square inch of my heart belongs to any of you. She reached for me again, but I stepped back. No. Contact. Ever again. I left the hospital, called my assistant, and told her to finalize the sale of Willow Creek. Let them have their little picnic spot. I had bigger plans. The next year, I launched a foundation for girls in tech, focused on those from broken homes, overlooked backgrounds, kids who felt like they didn't belong anywhere. We funded mentorships, scholarships, boot camps. In our first year, we helped over 2,000 girls across the country. That was my legacy. Not revenge, but reinvention. Still, sometimes I think about their faces, the way they looked when I stepped onto that lawn, sunglasses gleaming, confidence dripping off me like perfume. I think about Ron shaking hands, my mother's regret, the way silence swallowed them whole. And I smile, Dot, because in the end, the best revenge isn't cruelty, Dot. It's success that doesn't need their validation. Sometimes I wonder if trauma ever really disappears. People talk about closure like it's a final scene in a movie. The credits roll, you sigh, and everything is wrapped up in a neat little bow. But life's not like that. Not even close, even. After I left the hospital that day, after I said my piece and made my exit, something still festered. A wound that hadn't closed, just scarred over. I kept telling myself I didn't need them, that I'd won. And in most ways, I had. I was a self-made woman who took every rotten thing they ever threw at me and built a kingdom out of it. But inside, there was a little girl still sitting on a twin mattress in a cold, unheated room, wondering why no one ever came when she cried. That pain never left me. I just wore it better. The weeks after the hospital were strangely quiet. No calls, no emails, no desperate attempts from my mother. And then one night, everything changed. I was in my office, glass walls, exposed brick, floor to ceiling bookshelves, finishing up a late night call with a startup in Singapore. My assistant poked her head in. "There's someone here to see you." "No appointment," I sighed. "Who is it?" She hesitated. "A young woman. She says she's your niece." My chest tightened. Did she give a name? She said it's Kayla. Said her dad is Josh. I stared at her. Josh, my golden boy stepbrother. The one who used to roll his eyes when I tried to talk about art, who called me creepy Clara all through middle school, who once told our whole family I was probably going to grow up to be a cat lady who talked to her fridge. Now his daughter was here. "Let her in," I said, against every shred of judgment in my brain. She came in timidly, maybe 17, maybe 18, clutching a canvas portfolio and looking like a scared deer in a thunderstorm. She was, or at least, the girl I used to be. "Hi," she whispered, voice shaking. I didn't know where else to go. I nodded toward the leather chair across from my desk. "Sit." She sat, clutching the portfolio like it was armor. "Why are you here?" I asked, not unkindly. She hesitated, then looked up, eyes brimming. "Because I think I'm like you. And I think my dad hates that." That sentence knocked the air out of my lungs. "Go on." She opened the portfolio and laid out her sketches, raw, messy, brilliant, the kind of bold chaos that only comes from someone drowning in silence. Desperate to scream. "I want to study design," she said. "Digital illustration. But my dad says it's a waste. That I should study something practical. He told me I'd end up like you." I blinked. "That's supposed to be an insult now?" She gave a small, sad smile. "He still talks about you like you're a fluke or a freak." I wanted to meet the person he hates so much. I leaned back in my chair, studied her face. She was hurting, and I knew that kind of pain. Intimately. "You're talented," I said, flipping through her sketches, "but raw." "I know," she said. "That's why I came." "I heard you mentor girls." "You're not just here for mentorship, though," I said. "Are you?" She looked down. "Does your dad know you're here?" She shook her head. I nodded. "Okay." I offered her a bottled water and told her she could use one of our guest suites in the building for the night. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "I'll have someone drop you off at the train tomorrow. You can decide if you want to keep in touch." She looked at me, tears threatening to fall. "Thank you." "For what?" "For not turning me away." "Even though my family did that to you?" I didn't answer. I just nodded. That night, I sat alone in the rooftop garden again, staring at the lights of the city below. My hands gripped the wine glass like a lifeline. Kayla's visit stirred something ugly in me, not just anger at her father, but fear. Because if she had the same fire I did, she'd need more than talent. She'd need armor, thick skin, sharp edges she wasn't ready. Not yet, but maybe I could help her be. The next morning, before she left, I gave her a tablet loaded with design software, access to one of my firm's mentorship programs, and a personal invitation to our spring design residency. She looked at it like it was made of gold dot, and then she hugged me, tight, like family. Real family. A week later, I got an email. Subject line, "You think you're so generous, huh?" It was from Josh. I didn't even read the whole thing. Just enough to get the gist. How dare I undermine his parenting? How I was poisoning his daughter. How I'd always been a manipulative, attention-seeking loser. The usual venom dressed up like concern dot, and at the bottom, one final line. "You may have money now, Clara, but don't forget where you came from. Trash doesn't change." That was his mistake, because I had changed. I forwarded the email to My legal team flagged it as harassment. And then, just for the poetic satisfaction, I replied with a single sentence. Funny, I don't recall trash launching an education foundation or mentoring your daughter. Then I blocked him. A few days later, the real storm hit. My PR director burst into my office with a panicked look on her face. Clara, have you seen this? She pulled up a blog post. One of those shady gossip blogs that thrive on drama. The title made my stomach drop. Exposed. Tech mogul Clara Hale's family speaks out. Hidden past. Dark secrets and betrayal. The article was full of lies. Twisted half-truths. Quotes from my mother, my stepfather, even a fabricated statement from someone pretending to be my high school teacher. It painted me as vindictive, mentally unstable, emotionally abusive. Sad I turned my back on my hardworking family who only ever tried to love me. It was disgusting, but effective. In less than 12 hours, it was trending. I sat frozen, watching the chaos spread online. Comment sections, hashtags. People who knew nothing about me suddenly had opinions. I watched a decade of carefully built reputation teeter on the edge of ruin, and then I stood up. You know what to do, I told my team. Burn them down. My legal squad filed for defamation within the hour. Every false quote, every doctored image, every fake source, cataloged, cross-referenced, and systematically dismantled. I released a statement of my own, not emotional, not defensive. Just the truth. Then I did something no one expected. I went live, a 10-minute stream from my office. Face bare, voice steady, I told my story. No embellishment, just honesty. What it felt like to grow up unwanted. How I was pushed away, left behind. How I made something of myself despite it all. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I had no other choice. And then I said this. If telling the truth makes me the villain in their story, so be it. But I'd rather be hated for surviving than praised for staying silent. The comments flooded in, support, love, rage. And a shift. People saw through the smear campaign. The sympathy flipped back to me, only this time with force. I was no longer the mysterious success story. I was the girl who had clawed her way out of emotional hell and built a palace from its ashes, and I wasn't done. 1 month later, I bought the blog. Not just sued them, bought them. I fired every editor, gutted their funding, and transformed the platform into a digital mentorship hub for underrepresented youth in creative industries. They tried to shame me. I made them part of my legacy. After that, my family went dark. No more emails, no more visits, just silence. Except for Kayla. She kept in touch. She sent me progress updates, little sketches, emails about scholarships. And then one day, she sent me a photo of her dorm room at Parsons. A sticky note was taped to the wall behind her desk. On it was a single sentence. If telling the truth makes me the villain in their story, so be it. And beneath that, in tiny letters, thank you for saving me. I stared at the photo for a long time. Smiled. And finally, I cried. Not from pain, but from release. There's a specific kind of betrayal that feels like acid in your veins, not the kind that stings at first, then fades. No, this one burns deeper the longer it sits. It eats through trust, dissolves belief, and replaces it with something far worse than anger. Disgust. Up until that point, I thought I'd seen the worst of it. My family's smear campaign had tried to drag my name through the dirt, and I'd walked away with my head held high, stronger, sharper, untouchable. But nothing prepares you for betrayal that comes from inside. It started small, a strange discrepancy on one of our quarterly reports. Then a few missed calls from an investor I trusted, someone who never ignored my messages. Then another thing, a weird comment from a board member during a fundraising dinner. Are you sure you want to be this public right now. Given everything, I paused mid-sip of my wine. What do you mean? He gave a tight smile. Just the rumors. About the restructuring, the staff layoffs, the prototype leaks. People are talking. My skin went cold. There were no layoffs. No leaks, no restructuring. And if there were, I'd be the one behind them. I excused myself, left the dinner, and drove straight to HQ. I didn't wait for morning. I called in my Q, my legal lead, and my CFO for a midnight meeting. Only two showed up, the third my CFO. Elijah never responded, which was strange because Elijah had been with me since year 2. He helped me scale from a 3-person garage team to a multi-million-dollar enterprise. We'd eaten ramen in the back room during our first product launch. We'd celebrated milestones with takeout and cheap wine. He was supposed to be one of the real ones, so when I broke into his internal account and found a trail of falsified documents, backdoor wire transfers, and confidential IP sent to a competing firm, I stopped breathing for a second. Elijah hadn't just betrayed me. He'd sold me out. He'd leaked our proprietary designs to a rival startup and made sure the story about layoffs and instability would hit the right blogs at the right time. I sat back in my chair and stared at the screen like it was a horror movie. He was going to sink the company. Not overnight, but slowly, quietly, like termites in the foundation. By the time anyone noticed, the whole thing would be rotten from the inside out. And you want to know the worst part? He'd done it for a payout, not even out of hatred. Just money, greed. That kind of betrayal doesn't come with warning signs. It comes with silence, smiles, friendly emails. Then a knife in the back. I didn't cry, didn't scream. I just stood up, picked up my phone, and said one word to my head. Of security, lock him out. By the next morning, Elijah's badge didn't work. Neither did his passwords, his accounts. His laptop, his desk was cleaned out and boxed by noon. We sent an internal memo stating that he'd violated multiple fiduciary protocols and was under investigation. The response was explosive. Staff were shocked. Rumors spread. Investors got nervous, but I got ahead of it. I held a live stream that afternoon, sharp blazer. Clear eyes, nothing rehearsed. Yes, there was betrayal, I said, but it wasn't ours. It was someone who pretended to belong. The rest of us, we're still standing, and we're not just recovering. We're leveling up. The community rallied my team. Angry, loyal, fiercely protective, but the revenge. That had to be personal. So I made some calls. Reached out to a few lawyers. Hired a forensic accounting team to dig deeper, and what we found, that was the goldmine. Elijah had been in contact with a man named Marcus Walsh, the CEO of a rising design firm on the West Coast. A man who, funny enough, had been trying to buy out one of my smaller startups for months. He'd been circling like a vulture. Turns out, Marcus had paid Elijah under the table in exchange for data user insights, code snapshots, strategy briefs. They thought they were being clever, but they weren't ready for me. Scheduled a meeting with Marcus. Not a formal one, not a boardroom. No witnesses. Just me, him, and a quiet rooftop bar overlooking the city skyline. The kind of place where power didn't shout it, whispered. He arrived wearing expensive shoes and a smug little smile. Clara, he said, extending his hand. I didn't expect you to reach out personally. I don't delegate my revenge. I replied, shaking his hand with a smile of my own. We sat. He ordered whiskey. I ordered silence. He tried to make small talk. I let him ramble. Then I dropped the folder onto the table. Here's everything I have, I said calmly. Emails, transfers, encrypted messages. The entire chain of evidence. His smile faltered. If this goes public, I continued, you'll face a federal investigation for corporate espionage, insider trading, and IP theft. Your brand will become radioactive overnight. Sponsors will flee. VC will dry up. You'll spend the next decade in courtrooms. He opened his mouth. I raised a hand. Or you can do exactly what I say and walk away. He blinked. Walk. Away from what? From everything, I said. Your position, your shares, your influence. You'll resign quietly. Announce you're stepping back for personal reasons. Transfer controlling interest to your co-founder, someone clean. And never, ever come near any of my ventures again. He stared at me. I leaned in. Because if you don't, I will ruin you. He didn't argue. 3 days later, Marcus announced his retirement. Elijah was publicly disgraced, lawsuit pending. Our investors stabilized. Our PR team spun the narrative so hard we actually gained media traction. I did 3 interviews that week, every headline a variation of CEO takes down corporate mole. But that wasn't the best part. No, the best part was the message I got from Kayla the night after Marcus stepped down. It was a screenshot of her father's Facebook post. It read, "Some people never change. Some people just get more money to hurt others. Congratulations to my sister for becoming the exact thing she once swore she'd never be." I stared at the message for a long time, and then I typed a reply to Kayla. He still thinks I'm trying to hurt him. Poor man doesn't realize I forgot about him years ago. She responded instantly, "Keep going. They can't touch you anymore." And I realized something. I wasn't doing this for revenge anymore. Not really. Not for Ron. Not for my mom. Not for Josh. Not even for Elijah. I was doing this for every girl who's ever been told she's too quiet, too emotional, too weird. For every outsider. Every misfit, every kid who sat in the shadows and wondered if they mattered. I was building something bigger than payback. Was building proof that we do matter, that we can rise, and that even if the world shuts the door in your face, there's always a window you can shatter wide open. I'm Clara Hale, and this is just the beginning. It's strange how the people who hurt you the most never seem to disappear. They live in your shadows, in your choices, in the pause between your laughter. Even when you think you've outrun them, they find ways to creep back. And I thought I had escaped all of it. My mother's silence. Ron's abuse. Josh's jealousy. Elijah's betrayal. But there was still one person I had never confronted. One ghost that had haunted every relationship. Every late night breakdown. Every impossible standard I set for myself. My father, the one who left when I was 3, I had no memories of him. Just a few faded photos in a broken shoebox I found once in the back of my mom's closet. Photos she pretended not to notice were missing the next day. His name was Daniel Maddox. I only knew that because I once saw it printed on a torn medical bill when I was 10. He hadn't just left us, he'd vanished. No phone calls, no letters, no child support, just gone. Like I wasn't even real to him. As I built my empire, I told myself he didn't matter, that Ron had been worse, that his absence was a blessing in disguise. But the truth is, when someone leaves you like that, it plants a question inside you that never stops echoing. Why wasn't I enough to stay for? Even after everything I'd accomplished, that question still whispered to me in quiet moments on red-eye flights, in green rooms before interviews, in the silences after standing ovations. And then one night, it stopped whispering because I got an answer. It was a Thursday evening, cold and drizzly. I was just stepping off stage from a tech summit keynote in San Francisco when my assistant rushed over, eyes wide. "There's a man in the lobby," she said breathlessly. "He says he's your father." I felt my chest seize. What? He showed ID, said his name is Daniel Maddox. He looks like you, Clara. I stood frozen, the applause from the ballroom still echoing behind me. A surreal, almost sickening calm washed over me. Tell security to keep him there. I said. Don't let him leave. She nodded Dot, and 5 minutes later, I walked into the hotel's dimly lit side lounge and came face to face with the man who left me behind before. I could even speak his name. He looked older than I expected, thinner. His face was weathered, but his eyes were mine. Same shape, same shadows. Clara, he said softly. I didn't sit. I didn't blink. You're alive, I said, more accusation than observation. He nodded. I am. My fists clenched at my sides. Do you have any idea what I went through? I whispered. I came to explain. You don't get to explain. I snapped. You left. Not when I was 18, not after I messed up, when I was 3, a toddler. You disappeared, Daniel. He winced. I know. I've lived with that regret every day. Have you? I hissed, because I lived with it too. I lived with it in every empty birthday chair, every school pickup you missed, every single time I thought Ron was all I deserved because maybe, just maybe, I wasn't worth sticking around. 4. He closed his eyes. I got sick, he said quietly. Really sick. Back then, they didn't expect me to live. Then you should have died honestly, I said coldly. Not like a coward who left a child wondering if she mattered. I was afraid, he whispered. Of what? Of ruining your life more than I already had. I thought maybe it'd be better for you if I wasn't in it. I laughed, but it was hollow. Guess what? You left me in the hands of a man who mocked me daily and a mother too spineless to stop him, and I still built something. Without you, in spite of you. He nodded. I saw. That stopped me cold. I followed your career, he said. From a distance, your art, your tech, your rise, every headline. I watched you become something incredible. My voice was shaking now. Then why come now? He hesitated. Undying. Of course he was. Of what? Stage 4 pancreatic. Of course. And let me guess, you want redemption? He shook his head. No, I just wanted to see you once before I go, to say I'm sorry. To tell you I never stopped loving you, even if I failed you in every way that counts. I stared at him, at the man whose absence had shaped my entire existence, and then I did. Something I didn't expect. I sat down because the woman I'd become didn't need him to be sorry anymore, but maybe the girl I used to be needed to hear it anyway. For the next hour, we talked. He told me about his illness, his regrets, the lonely years, the letters he wrote and never sent. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He just gave me the truth. And when I left that hotel lounge, I didn't feel rage. I felt release. That night, I sat on the balcony of my San Francisco apartment and cried for the first time in years, not out of weakness, but out of healing, out of closure. The final ghost had been confronted, and I had survived. A month later, he passed away. I didn't go to the funeral, but I did send flowers. One single white lily with a card that read, "For what we could have been, Clara." The next chapter of my life came fast, bigger stages. Global reach. I launched the Hale Initiative, a national tech and art mentorship program for underrepresented youth, complete with fellowships, housing, and mental health support. Not just scholarships, but scaffolding, real structure. Real. Power. The launch event had over 1,000 attendees, including senators, CEOs, and artists I'd admired for years. And right in the front row, camera in hand and tears in her eyes, was Kayla. She wore a blazer and boots that looked just like the ones I'd worn the day I met her. She was becoming, and she wasn't the only one. In less than 6 months, our program had applications from over 20,000 students across all 50 states. My inbox flooded with letters, stories, survivors. One girl wrote, "You don't know me, but your story kept me alive. You gave me proof that broken doesn't mean buried." Another, "My mom called me worthless. Now I'm studying computer science because of you. Every time I read one, I felt the weight of my past lift a little more. And then the final twist came that Josh reached out through Kyla. He asked for a meeting. He'd lost his job. His wife had left. Kayla had moved out and gone no contact. The golden boy had crumbled. He wanted help. Redemption. Money. Whatever. I was willing to give. I told Kayla the truth. I'm not helping him, I said. She looked conflicted. He's still my dad, and you're still my family, I said. But I won't use my success to reward the people who tried to break me. That's not justice. That's codependency. She nodded slowly. Then she deleted his number. And with that, the cycle broke. I wasn't the outsider anymore. I wasn't the lost girl. I wasn't someone else's mistake. I was Clara Hale, a survivor, a CEO, a mentor. And finally free. The moment you threaten power, it fights back. At first, my rise had been entertainment to the elites. A cute story to tell at charity galas. Did you hear about that dropout girl who made it big? So inspiring. They clapped when I gave speeches, smiled when I cut ribbons, took photos with me like I was some kind of trophy. But when I started actually changing things, when I stopped smiling for their cameras and started building infrastructure, they couldn't control. The tone shifted. I noticed it first in the boardrooms, where once I was praised, now I was challenged. Do you really think these students are ready for real tech careers? Isn't this initiative a little too ambitious? Aren't you worried about setting unrealistic expectations for disadvantaged youth? I didn't flinch. Unrealistic, I said, staring down a gray-haired investor with soft hands and a private jet. The only thing unrealistic is expecting them to stay quiet forever. They stopped smiling. Then the threats started. Quiet ones dressed as concerns. Some of your language could alienate key donors. Maybe don't. Talk so much about abuse. It's a turnoff for sponsors. Could we reframe your story? Make it more palatable? No, and absolutely not. I didn't fight to become a sanitized success story. I earned every scar, and I wasn't going to bleach them out for anyone. That's when they came for me harder. First, a smear piece in a major business magazine, anonymous. Sources claiming I was emotionally unstable, difficult to work with, uncooperative. The article called me a brilliant but volatile figure whose empire is built on sand. Then came the board pressure. Suddenly, some of my original investors, old men who hadn't even logged into a product dashboard, wanted more control. More say they question everything. Micromanaged budgets, second-guessed hires. Demanded I consider stepping back and bring in someone with experience in managing large-scale philanthropy. They wanted me quiet. Polished. Manageable. But I didn't build Holly Industries to make them comfortable. Built it to make them irrelevant. So I played my final card, the one they didn't even know I had. A fully independent, publicly funded, community-backed digital campus for creators and coders, designed entirely by people like me. No legacy donors, no institutional gatekeepers, no Ivy League pedigree. I called it the Mosaic Project because we were the shattered pieces they threw away, and we were building something beautiful from the ruins. I announced it at a national conference with nearly 100,000 live viewers standing. On stage, under blinding lights, I said, success stories shouldn't be the exception. They should be the blueprint. And I'm tired of seeing brilliant minds locked out because they don't look, speak, or act the way power expects them to. So we're changing the locks. The audience erupted, but the old guard, they panicked out. Within a week, I got 3 cease and desist. Letters from corporate partners claiming that Mosaic violated obscure clauses in old non-compete agreements. They threatened to freeze my accounts. To sue Dot, I welcomed it because while they were busy filing lawsuits, I was already broadcasting everything. I published every letter, every shady, and DA Dot every contract they tried to weaponize. I aired it out on. A live stream, no PR filter, no makeup, just me in a hoodie and jeans, holding up paper after paper and saying, "This is what they do when they're afraid." They hide behind paper shields. They weaponize silence. And they count on you not having a voice loud enough to fight back. But guess what? We have the mic now. That night, the clip went viral. Not just national. Global. #Clara Uncensored trended. For 3 days straight, students marched with my quotes on signs. Tech forums exploded with support. News outlets that once ignored me now begged for interviews. And the donors. They blinked first. Lawsuits were dropped. Apologies issued. Stocks rebounded. They realized too late that the very platforms they used to control now belonged to the people like me. They had the power, but I had the narrative, and that was stronger. But even in victory, I wasn't immune to pain, because that kind of war leaves bruises. You lose people. Some board members resigned, quietly. A few employees I trusted left without saying goodbye, too afraid to be collateral. Even Kayla called one night, crying. My professor said I should keep my head down, she sobbed. He told me not to mention you in my application. I felt rage boil in my chest. You'll put my name in bold, I told her. And if he dares question it, I'll buy the department and fire him myself. She laughed through tears. I love you, she whispered. I love you too, kid. That night, I cried again, not because I was broken, but because I was whole, and it terrified me. I had become the very thing the world tried to convince me I could never be. Respected, feared, admired, free, and yet, sometimes, when I walked past the mirror, I still saw her. The girl with the trembling hands, the silent scream, the bruises that weren't visible but never really healed, and I'd whisper to her, quietly, they can't touch us anymore. Then came the final moment, the full circle ending I never planned but always needed. An invitation arrived in my inbox. A high school principal from my old town, the one I left at 16. The one where I was called weird, dirty, worthless. The one where no one ever showed up for me. She invited me back. To speak. To students. To their students. Her email read, we teach your story now as a case study. We'd be honored to have you visit. I sat staring at the screen for a full 10 minutes. Then I wrote one word. Yes. I flew in unannounced. Drove past the trailer park one once called home. Past the 7-Eleven where I hid during storms. Past the gas station where I filled out college applications. On the bathroom floor because it had the only working outlet I could access. The school looked smaller than I remembered, but the moment I walked into that auditorium full of kids with notebooks and phones and hungry eyes, I felt something crack. Open inside me. I told them everything. The pain, the fight, the failures, the triumph. Told them how they would be underestimated. Laughed at. Dismissed. And how none of that mattered. Because they weren't broken. They were becoming. And after the speech, as I was leaving, one girl, tiny, pale, with shaking hands, ran up to me. She had tears in her eyes. I was going to give up, she whispered. But I saw your face. And I remembered that you used to walk these halls, and now you're... She couldn't finish. So I hugged her. Tight. And whispered back, so will you. And I believed it because I had lived it. Clara Hale wasn't just a name anymore. She was a movement, a warning, a blueprint, a storm, and the people who once whispered behind my back, now they spoke my name with reverence, because revenge doesn't always come with fire and fury. Sometimes the most devastating revenge is simply becoming the thing they said you never could be. They say legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what lives on in spite of you. I used to think revenge was the end game, that the highest form of justice was making them regret ever doubting me. I spent years proving them wrong, silencing every voice that once mocked mine, and I did it. On paper, I had everything, but the truth? The real war wasn't with them, Dot, it was with me, and I didn't fully understand that until I found myself standing alone on the stage at the World Summit on Innovation and Equity. Not just tech leaders, presidents, activists, global icons, and me, Dot, the girl from the broken trailer with duct-taped windows. Now giving the keynote speech to an audience holding their breath for her every word. You don't need to be born into power, I said, voice steady. You just need to refuse to be buried. The crowd erupted. That moment should have felt like the peak. The final scene in a movie. Curtain drop. But later that night, back in my hotel suite overlooking Geneva, the silence hit me like a punch to the ribs, Dot, because for the first time, I didn't know what was next. Everything I'd built had started from pain. Every milestone had been a middle finger to someone who tried to erase me, Dot. And now, with the whole world listening, no one left to fight. Who was I without the war? I didn't have an answer until the knock came, Dot. My assistant appeared in the doorway, tentative. Clara, there's someone here to see you. I blinked. At this hour? He flew in from the States. Says it's urgent. I sighed. Name? She hesitated. Ron. The name cracked like a gunshot in my chest. Ron. The man who raised me. The man who mocked me. Who shoved, slapped, screamed. Who told me I'd be nothing. I stood frozen. What does he want? He said, he's dying. Of course he is. Everyone who left me bleeding comes back to die. I didn't want to see him, not even a little, but I said, bring him up. Because some ghosts need to be buried face dash to dash face. 10 minutes later, he walked in, older, fragile, liver spots on sunken skin. His eyes, once so cruel, were glassy now, like they'd finally seen the damage. He sat slowly in the chair across from me. No smugness, no bravado, just a man unraveling. I thought maybe I'd never see you again, he said, voice raspy. That was the plan, I replied. He nodded. Fair. Silence. Then he said, I saw you. On TV, the girl I used to yell at now talks to presidents. You didn't just yell, I said coldly. No, I didn't. More silence. He pulled a crumpled photo from his jacket. It was me. Age 8, in a paper crown. Smiling so wide I looked almost delusional. I kept this, he whispered. I almost laughed. As a souvenir? He looked up, tears in his eyes. No, as a reminder of what I destroyed. My throat tightened. He swallowed. I don't expect forgiveness, Clara. I don't deserve it. I just wanted to tell you I was wrong about everything. You weren't weak. You weren't worthless. You were the strongest damn thing I've ever seen. A pause, then quietly, I was scared of you. I stared at him. What? You had something I didn't, he said. Hope, dreams, fire, and I hated it because I'd already given up on myself. So I tried to snuff it out in you, and it didn't work. I said nothing. I didn't need to. He stood shakily, eyes shining. I know this doesn't fix anything. I just wanted to say it out loud before I go. He turned to leave, and God help me, I said, wait. He stopped. I walked to the minibar, poured him a glass of water, set it down in front of him. Then I sat. Tell me, I said. Everything. You remember everything you wish you'd done differently? Say it all. He looked stunned. Then he did. For the next hour, he confessed, not for redemption, not for sympathy, just to be witnessed. And I listened, not because he deserved it, but because I did, because I deserved to see the monster defanged, small, human. And when he left, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even shake Dot. I just stood at the window, watching the night sky swallow him whole. The next day, I got the call. He died mid-flight. Heart failure, that was it. The last ghost dot gone dot. I flew home with something new inside. Me dot not peace, but possibility. The war was over. Now it was time to build the world I wanted. The world they never imagined I could create. 3 months later, we launched Mosaic Global, chapters in 42 countries. A digital library of creative tools, mental health resources, coding boot camps, and grants for youth who grew up in chaos. Not to save them, but to arm them. So they could save themselves. We partnered with governments, universities, artists, survivors, and I stepped back from the spotlight, not out of shame, but because I didn't need it anymore. My story was no longer mine alone. It belonged to every kid who was ever told to sit down, shut up, and know their place. It belonged to the girls hiding bruises under sleeves, the boys writing code in shelters. The non-binary teens kicked out for existing. It belonged to them. And years later, long after the headlines faded, the stages dimmed, the world moved on moment stayed with me. I was walking through one of our mosaic centers in Morocco. A small girl, maybe 10, ran up to me with a hand-drawn picture of a woman in a red blazer holding a lightning bolt. She handed it to me, beaming. "That's you," she said proudly. "Miss Clara, you make people brave." I knelt down, heart full. "You know what?" I whispered. "You make me brave, too." And I meant it, because revenge might have built my empire, but love built my legacy. Not the kind I received, but the kind I gave. Freely. Fiercely. Finally. So if you're still listening, if you're still here. Let me tell you what I've learned. The most devastating revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's proving yourself right. It's surviving so loudly they can't hear their own lies anymore. It's turning your pain into a passport. And building something they'll never be invited to. I'm Clara Hale, not the villain in their story, not the victim in mine, but the architect of a future they'll never forget. And that's how you win.